Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horror Realm. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're doing another indie horror spotlight. Today I have with us, he's a director. I have the pleasure of seeing this fucking trailer where it looks badass. And he has a movie out that's called DAMNATION. I have with us Chris Dalton. Chris, welcome to the Horror Realm.
Thanks for having me, Travis. I appreciate it. It's nice to be here.
It's a pleasure, man. It's a pleasure. Now, tell my audience who hasn't had a chance to see the trailer or the movie about DAMNATION.
Well, it's this crazy little horror film made kind of it's a yin and yang type thing. We made it. It was it's a real film. It's everything about it was big for us, but it really had the spirit of those days when I used to go out with a Super 8 camera and my buddies and a mask and a couple, a kung fu gi, and we'd shoot our early films like that. It was really guerrilla style in one aspect, yet it was shot on real equipment with real industry people in another aspect. So it was really an interesting hybrid of a film. It's a little indigenous horror film with a lot of subtext and truths from indigenous communities, things that are going on. And it was an interesting ride. We started shooting in September 2021. We shot for 12 days and then picked up a couple more. And I say it was made over the course of 3 years, but we laid off for about a year and a half after that initial shooting. And that was probably the smartest move I made, because in that period, my son, Toby, who shot the film, my editor, Frank Pop, and we kicked around ideas on how to fix this thing or how to make it work. Some of the footage was really good, but nothing was really complete. We had days where we were shooting with 25 people at the most. We had a few people that were really versed in using the camera equipment, the lighting, the audio, and then we had a lot of people helping out that weren't. So it was a lot of trials and tribulations. We had something we thought special there, but we weren't sure. So we kicked around a lot of ideas. Should we do extensive reshoots? Should we veer it in this direction? Should we veer in that direction? Should we make it a short with the philosophy that it's better to have a really solid short than a terrible feature? Because this was my narrative feature debut. I'd been making documentaries for years, feature length and shorts. I'd produced a couple horror shorts, but this was my narrative feature debut. And I don't know we weren't sure what we were going to do with it. It was, like I said, there was some good stuff, but like I like to tell people, there was a lot of talented people that worked on the film, but ultimately it was tenacity and hard work and determination that got it across the finish line. Because what we did was we came up with a plan. We came back a year and a half later and we continued shooting, and literally we premiered it September 19th, 2024 in Buffalo, New York, at Amazing Fantasy Fest, a festival run by a cult filmmaker from Buffalo, Gregory Lamberson, who did Slime City and Johnny Gruesome and whatnot, Guns of Eden. And we were shooting, I'm embarrassed to say, we were shooting into August still. Little things, like just pickups and stuff like that. And, it's gone well. Like it's surprising. I mean, the budget was liberally $32,000. That's being liberal about the number. And it was really made on the backs of the community. I live in a small area, the Niagara region, near Niagara Falls, near the Buffalo border. We have a lot of small communities. So as such, we leaned on these small areas to let us use locations. People were making food for us. People were standing in as extras for us. People were giving us clothing and wigs and whatnot for costumes. All that said, we had my son shooting it, who was an accomplished cinematographer. We had an accomplished gaffer, Chris Lucio. We had a real world special effects artist, but we had a lot of people that were just in there helping out as well. So it was a really, really tough shoot. That said, the results are pretty astounding for what we did and how we made it. Like it, to say it punches above its weight class is kind of an understatement. It's done well. And since September when we premiered it, we've won, I think we've won 6 awards. We just won Best Screenplay and Best Performance in Toronto. We've won a Best Indie Award. We've won a Best Horror Film Award. It's gotten into a lot of festivals. So it's kind of where the film is sitting at right now. Pretty happy with how it's gone thus far.
Now, how did it feel to, have a movie that you spent years and years developing, and you get to finally see it on the big screen? You get to see this audience watching it and take it in. Were you more focused on watching the film at that moment, or were you watching the audience and see what their reactions were?
I think, I've been around for a long time. This was treading on some new grounds for me, a horror feature. I've loved horror films since I was a kid. I'd made many documentaries. Like I said, I'd produced a couple of horror shorts. But on this film, here I was producing. I wrote it. I co-directed it. I did the casting. I found all the locations. And there was days that after 16 hours, I was going home and making food for us for the next day. But that's what you have to do to get a $32,000 film across the finish line. You have to wear a lot of hats. And I knew it was going to be like that. And that's okay. It's okay to do it once. Yeah. It's an elaborate, I like to tell people, it's an elaborate magic trick is what this was, but it can only be done once. You can never ask people to stick around with you for 3 years again and not be paid. Or, we treated everybody really well. We fed everybody really well. We stayed, we had them in hotels. We did what we could. But there was people, the bottom line, that worked for free. So finally seeing that film, I liked to think in my heart of hearts it was a good film. I felt really good about it. But now you're showing it to that audience. And as well as I do, Travis, everything is subjective, right? I mean,
it is.
You can watch Long Legs and hate it. I could watch Long Legs and think it was the best film that came out last year. I mean, you just never know. Fortunately, I think for us, we played in front of a horror crowd, and they got it. It was kind of funny because the film that played before us, Special Needs Revolt, was very much in the trauma, trauma mode. That one. I know. Do you know it? Okay. Okay. Yes. So it was very much in the trauma films mode, and we're sitting there watching it, my son and I, and I'm thinking, oh no. People were getting it. They were loving it. They were laughing at it. And I'm thinking, I don't know if they're going to get our film. Like our film is really, really Canadian in a lot of ways. It was shot in Southern Ontario, but very much it's steeped in that Northern Ontario vibe. And for people in your audience that don't know Northern Ontario, there's a lot of remote communities. I mean, there's these communities where, there's 400 people, and the next closest town has 1,400 people, and it's very, very spread out. And I didn't know if people would get it. I mean, and thankfully it played in front of that horror audience, and they got it and they enjoyed it. The Q&A was a wonderful one. People had great questions. And playing for a horror audience, it was really nice too, because something that I had built into the screenplay, when I knew I wasn't going to be able to get a face actor or face actors or anything like that. I mean, we had such a small budget. So what I did was I designed an idea where one of the characters is a radio show host for kind of a myths and monsters type show, kind of a Carl Kolchak type character from Night Stalker. I loved Night Stalker growing up.
Great.
So this is my Carl Kolchak meets Peter, forget his name from Fright Night, Peter Vincent from Fright Night, the Roddy McDowell character. So he hosts this show in a small northern town, and he talks to people about, vampires and werewolves and stuff like that. And he gets brought into this story because they think he's an expert. So our main characters go to him to help fight this evil that's going on in their community, unbeknownst that he's kind of a non-believer and he just Googles stuff. That's how that's a line from the film. He goes, well, why did you come here? And they said, you know everything about monsters. He goes, I Google shit. So, I mean, that's kind of the character in a nutshell. But what I did was I wrote it in a way that if I could get a couple of named people to lend us a voice, they could be phone callers for his show. So it was really nice sitting there in that Buffalo audience because they picked out some of the voices in it. I had Vernon Wells from The Road Warrior and Commando did some voice work for us as a caller. Kevin Van Hendrick from Basket Case.
Nice. Classic, absolutely. Ray Sager, who acted in 8 Herschel Gordon Lewis films and then came to Canada and produced 3 prom night films. He was, I think, a line producer on My Bloody Valentine, Humongous. He worked on all kinds of Canadian stuff up here. He did some voice work for us. And then a real coup was we got Brett Halsey, who has acted for Lucio Fulci, Dario Argento, Mario Bava. He was in Godfather 3 for Francis Ford Coppola. And funny, I actually reached out to him, and he agreed to do it. And when we recorded his voice, we did them all over the phone, which worked out great because it was supposed to be a call-in show in the film. So it sounded great. It just cut together fantastic. Brett Halsey says to Seb, who recorded his voice, Seb co-directed the film with me. He says, Seb's a real horror fan. And he says, suppose you want to talk about horror films now. And Seb goes, yeah, I'd love to, kind of fanboying. And he goes, well, I don't really like them. And Seb goes, oh. He goes, but I read your buddy's script and I really thought highly of it, so that's why I'm doing this for you guys. So these people, it was such a boost to us because we're filmmakers, but we're horror fans. And, I recorded Vernon Wells' voice over the phone, and he says to me, I was just really thankful. I said, you don't understand how much this means to us, you doing this as a favor, helping us out. And he says, I'm going to tell you something. My father said to me growing up that if you ever make it, pay it forward. And he goes, I like to think that I've done as well, if not better, than 65% of the population. That was the number I think he threw out. He goes, so I'm doing this for you. And I mean, that's just really kind because nobody had to do it. I reached out to a few other horror stalwarts and that, but, agents got involved and money got involved, and I can't pay $4,000 for 14 seconds of voice work when our film was only a $32,000 film. So these guys, they just did it out of the graciousness and goodness of their hearts, and it was really nice of them. So that Buffalo crowd, that initial audience of horror fans, they picked out some of those voices, so it was really nice. So to answer your question, because maybe I didn't,
it was really cathartic sitting there in a crowd, especially hearing them get it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's certain things you do that I think this works, or I think it's good, but is the audience going to get it? And when they do, it's like, oh wow, okay, this is great. So yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah, because I can imagine. Because I mean, that would be the equivalent if somebody put one of my interviews up on the movie theater, and there's God knows how many people sitting there watching. And I'm sitting there in the room too, like, oh, like it would be amazing, but it was also be nerve wracking because I'm like, well, do they like it? Are they falling asleep? Like, what's going on? Like, it would be
it's
I'd
interesting.
be torn. Yeah, it'd be interesting.
It's interesting, like. And I mean, the other thing is this: we've got audiences now that are we live in that ADD society where everything is fast,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're going to put a video up here, make sure it's 30 seconds long or short, because people their attention spans. Our film is a bit of a slow burn, kind of in that 80s type horror mold. So you're really hoping that there's something in there that the audience grasps onto, a character or the story or whatever, or the connectivity for a lot of Canadians to these small communities that I wrote into the script, the names of these small areas and stuff like that. And for me, as somebody who is First Nations, that audience that gets the Indigenous subtext and they go, hey, I connect to that. So those are really special, and hopefully they get those things. They can stick around long enough until the action starts or the build-up starts going, and it seems to have worked really well. When we set out to make the film, there was a few things I wanted to do. I wanted it to be a horror feature. I wanted it to be about Indigenous people, starring Indigenous people, and I wanted those people to be portrayed as intelligent and educated and somewhat in control of their own destinies, because we've just lived through 75 years of film and TV with that colonial mindset where an Indian is the drunk in the town.
Mm-hmm.
An Indian is the guy that's breaking and entering or doing this or doing that. So I really worked hard at trying to give the audience something to cheer for, or without going rah, rah, rah and bashing everybody's head over and sending a big message out. I wanted it to be entertaining first with a bit of a message underneath it. And hopefully that's what's happening there.
Now, by this being your first horror feature, this is a two-part question. What is one thing that you were like, boy, I knocked that out of the fucking park. I'm going to carry that over to my next one. And what's one thing you were like, I would never do that again?
Ooh, I'll tell you what, we made a lot of mistakes, man. Hey, live and learn. I mean, I produced 2 horror shorts that we did really well with, but we shot them really guerrilla style. Like, we were out in a field at 3:00 in the morning shooting and blasting blood all over the place, and just I like to call them hillbilly shorts. I mean, they were just really fun and really enjoyable, and the outcomes were really solid. So for this feature, I think what we really, really did right was we really created a family vibe. We treated everybody pretty well. We kept them on. We've stayed friends. We go to screenings together. We, go for chicken wings together. We talk about the next project together. I've shot demos for a few of the actors for projects that they're trying to get. You name it. So I think we created a really nice little dysfunctional, fun, tight-knit, weird family. And how did we do that? Did we, this was the first big film that I was a director on. I produced the whole thing, but I co-directed it. But I think we did that through. I have a lot of experience in management and working with people, and I just carried a lot of that over. Like I said, we just treated everybody really well and tried to do the best for them. Like I always saw it as our project. This is our project. It's not my film. It's all of us. You know what I mean? We're trying to do this thing and get it finished for everybody. That said, I'm really weird in that I hold everything really tight to my sleeve, like really close, like so I didn't show anybody the film. Nobody in the film had seen it until it screened. And that's going back to that thing where I rely a lot on my gut instinct. Like I like to hope that I know what's working and what's not working. What did we do wrong? I'll never try to make another feature-length film for $30,000. I'll tell you that. Man, oh man, it was, like the bulk of the money went into. We were very fortunate because we had free use of equipment, which is unheard of almost. But fortunately for us, my son, who was the DP on the film, worked for an equipment rental house. So for most of the film, we had free use of equipment. I had to insure the equipment. So that's where the money went. Insurance, hotels for people coming from out of town, feeding people. And as ridiculous as it sounded, one of the biggest expense. I spent some money on special effects. My special effects guy, buying him materials and stuff like that. But an incredible amount of money goes to coffee and donuts and stuff like that. Like it seems ridiculous, but you have to keep people happy, and you have to have coffee, you have to have snacks, and you have to. So I think on our first 9 days of shooting, all of a sudden I was like, holy smokes, I've spent like $1,200 on coffee, like in donuts. Like, that's crazy. So you can kind of see where the money goes. And you kind of learn, hopefully you learn what works and what doesn't, what you'll do next time and what you won't do. And certainly the money's a big issue. I mean, we're shooting for our next film to have a substantially bigger budget. I'm not going to be able to step into that $1 million category. I'm not that guy. I don't know if I'll ever be that guy, but we're hoping for somewhere in the, depending on the project, in the $200,000 area, which seems like a lot compared to $32,000. In the grand scheme of things, it's not much, but I know what we can do with the money and some of the people that we've brought into the family. We've got a set group of people that will certainly be carried over to the next film and work on that. So that's a couple of the things I think we did right, and a couple things that I would never do again. Like, I mean, there was times when I'd phone my mom up and say, "Hey, can you make us food for Saturday?" And my mom's amazing, but she's that hardcore Northern Ontario Indigenous woman who grew up in the bush and grew up with not having a lot of money, and she'll always make me work for it. She'll go, are you kidding me? How many people? 3, 4, 5? And I go, no, like 20. All right, pick up the food tomorrow, and she'll do it. But that's what we were leaning on, and the locations. We had locations. We needed a radio station for the film. So how am I going to get a radio station on this budget? Well, it happened that one of our main actors knew a guy with a radio station. A local musician in Niagara, Rick Rose, well-known character in Niagara. So we went to the radio station, and Ryan Lunn introduced me to Rick Rose. Rick Rose, this is Chris Darton. Chris wants to make a film and shoot here. I looked at him. I said, yeah, we need a radio station. We need it for 3 days. And Rick's one of those people that just kind of look at you. And I know he's looking at me thinking, what's wrong with this guy? and he said, yes, sure. And I said, well, here's the problem. 2 of the days we need are nights, through the night. And I know it's not a big 24-hour operation or anything like that you have. Is there a way we can get in here at night? And he kind of put his head down. He thought for like 2 seconds, and he looked up and he reached in his pocket and he handed me his keys. And that was what we made this film on, the back of the goodwill of people like Rick Rose handing me his keys and saying, yeah, just go use my radio station for 2 nights. Make sure it's locked up in the morning. I mean, wow. It's unheard of, things like that. We shot at another business, tons of bike gear. It's a motorcycle. It's the people that own it, Lil and Ed. They own the house. They have beautiful property. There's a parking lot, driveway / parking lot, and then their business, which sells motorcycle gear. I had shot for a few hours of a documentary there a few years earlier, and they made the mistake of saying to me, because I said, "Oh, this is a great location, beautiful. Yeah, if you ever need it to shoot, let us know." So like 3 years later, I'm knocking on their door saying, "Hey, do you remember me?" "Yep." "Any chance we could shoot here for a couple days?" "Sure." We ended up shooting there for 8 days, and they have these outbuildings. And at one point we had hair and makeup here, we had food over here, we were shooting over here. We blew brain matter all over Ed's ceiling. I said, "Hey, we've made a mess of your ceiling. I'll get one of my guys to clean it up." Ed looked up. He goes, "Just leave it." He goes, "I think one day maybe we'll do a tour here and we can tell people, hey, we shot a film in here. There's still brain on the ceiling." You know, it was just so much goodwill and so many people, helping us out, and it was crazy. So I like to, when I'm doing speaking engagements, talking about the film and that, I try to salute those people for how much they did for us, and the cast and crew who. The acting in the film for a little film is stellar. Like it's hard to believe. And I mean, if those actors hadn't stuck with us and took it as seriously as they had and came out every day for every phone call and text 2-3 years later and been prepared and knew their lines, we would have floundered. But they they took it really seriously. We all did. But we had a good time. And it's one of those things that almost kills you. And then 2 days later, you say to yourself, "Man, I'm exhausted. I don't know if I could ever do this again." And a couple days later, you go, "I miss this. I want to be shooting again." Like, how it goes. Like, it's just one of those things. So, yeah, it was quite the experience. And I can't wait to get another crack at it and do it again.
And that's great, man. And I'm gonna tell you something. I've been doing this for 2 years now, and I've interviewed. I didn't know nothing about movie making. I love movies, but I didn't know anything about behind the scenes. I love indie horror movie, but I did not sit there. I'm thinking about it like, oh my goodness, talking to filmmakers, like you have to pay for hotels, especially if you're getting people from out of town. Actors and actresses from out of town. You have to pay for at least hotels. I mean, you have to. You have to do catering. And that's sometimes breakfast and dinner, if you're doing those long 12, 16-hour shoot days. That costs money, hotels and, I mean, just food costs money. And then, but in your situation, I mean, you saved on equipment. A lot of filmmakers have to pay for that equipment or rent that equipment. And even locations. I was talking to a filmmaker just to film at a coffee shop for 3 hours. It was like $500. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, what at a small company? Like, what if, you had multiple locations that you were filming at, and you had to pay $500 for each location?
Sure.
How can you do that on such a small budget? And it's a lot.
I think, either you have the money, or you pivot in a way that you don't, and you figure it out. I mean, that's ultimately it. I mean, that's what we did. We dug in, and there was a split second where I was like, should we just toss the footage and it's done and not finish it? And I mean, I knew that would never happen. I knew ultimately, you have to finish it. I mean, once the train leaves the station, it's getting at the destination. It has to, especially when that many people have put that much into it. So we really dug in and we just figured out how we're going to do this and what the impetus for us finishing the film and how we did it was our first shoots were multiple days in a row, big shoots, a lot of people. By the time we came back to finish the film, we were doing what my son and I called stinger shoots, where we'd shoot for 3 hours in the morning, one scene. And then next weekend, we'd shoot for 2 days, but not 16-hour days. We'd shoot for 8 hours one day and 4 the next. And we figured it out and broke up those sections in a way that we made that work. Because to go back and shoot for those long days with all those people, I didn't have the money to feed people anymore. I didn't have the money for the hotels. We had to kind of figure it all out in a different way. But yeah, all those things are expenses. I mean, everything is expensive. It's the Robert Rodriguez thing where, Hollywood's got the cash hose. When there's a problem, you just pull out the cash hose and it fixes everything there's an issue with. When you don't, you think outside the box and you sit down and you say, how are we going to do this? How are we going to make this work? And that's kind of what we had to do. And in the end, certainly this little film is better for it. It's a nice little piece. It really is. Like, I'm really proud of it, actually. And I mean, I've sat there and had to watch it numerous times at screenings, and you'd think you'd get bored of it, but I like sitting there and seeing that audience kind of get it.
Yeah.
And I live for that Q&A afterward, because I love when people throw those questions out. How did you do this? Or what did you do for that? Like, whatnot. So it's been a great ride. It really has.
Love it, man. Listen, I can't wait to see Damnation. Now,
yeah,
Chris.
Thank you.
Well, and now where can everyone find you and your work?
Wow. I don't know. Google me, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I mean,
channel or
yeah. So, quite a few of my documentaries are on YouTube under my name, Christopher Darton, Chris Darton, under Blues Harp Productions. That's my company name. If you Google me up, we've been really fortunate. We've had a few people write some really, really positive reviews of our little film. And that's been really nice. Rue Morgue magazine did an article on us. It's been really, really an incredible trip so far. I'm out there on YouTube land. I'm out there on Facebook. And basically I'm hacking away at writing the next film, 2 films, and working on funding, because we're trying to come in that $200,000 to $250,000 area, and that's work up here. That's for sure.
Well, Chris, listen, by the way, down in the description, everyone, is the link to Chris's YouTube channel. So definitely check it out. Subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. And Chris, listen, I'm looking forward to seeing Damnation, and I'm looking forward to have you back on to talk about your future projects.
Thanks for having me, Travis. And you know what? Thanks for being one of those guys out there doing this and giving us this platform. Because like I said, I like to think I'm the guy that can probably get a film made. But to get out there and get it shown or do things like podcasts or interviews or screenings, that's the great unknown. So I really appreciate it.
Anytime, man. Listen, and I'm a huge indie horror fan. I grew up, my mom was a big horror fan. So at 5 years old, I was watching The Full Moon. I was watching Trauma. I was watching shit that I was supposed to be watching.
Yeah, I love it.
And you know what? When you have indie horror now, it's hard, because back in the day, you better go to the video store and you could rent a big budget horror movie like Child's Play. And in the previews, they would show the indie horror movies. You know what I mean? They would show the low budget horror movies in the trailer. But there's none of that anymore. There's no advertisements for indie horror. So and that's why I did the show, man, because there's just a lot of great indie horror filmmakers out there that
there's some really good people. Yeah, there's some really good people, and they're really hardworking people. I mean, you've got to be, you got to love it, or else don't do it, man. I mean, and you got to be a fan. And And I was fortunate because my uncle purchased the first ever Sony Betamax on the market in 1980, 81 area. There was no video stores at the time. Mm-hmm. And I can remember him saying, "Hey, I'm getting this thing that plays movies." And it's like, "What are you talking about?" "It plays movies on your TV." I go, "What do you mean?" Like it was sorcery in my eyes. Like it was like, what kind of witchcraft is this? Are you kidding me? And so there was no video stores anywhere. That's how new it was. So fortunately, my uncle and I were really close, and he had some kind of list. There was maybe 100 movies on it, and it was a place all the way across the country in British Columbia. And they sold movies. And he said, "Pick out a couple of movies." And I picked out Friday the 13th, Halloween, and then I picked out My Bloody Valentine and The Changeling. And then it was Phantasm and Friday the 13th Part 2, I think. We had 6 movies, and we'd watch them over and over and over again. And then video stores started opening, and that's where the magic, like you said, really, it was a whole new world, man. I mean, walking into a video store, I was like, the discovery of these films and like to look around for hours and choose stuff. It was magical. It was a magical period. It really was.
I'm glad to experience that. I feel like, listen, I like what streaming is doing, but I feel like streaming has killed that, And yeah, streaming is easier for filmmakers to get their stuff out there, but it's not getting seen, Yeah. And video stores, I would just pick a movie literally off the cover. Yeah. And like, it was movies that I never heard of. I never seen no poster for it. Yeah. It was just something completely random. And like, there's so many options on let's say Tubi that like it's a headache sometimes streaming through trying to find something. And because there's way too many options. And I just feel like when you have way too many options, it's not always a good thing to have that many options.
I think with a video store, you walked in and you saw that cover. Mm-hmm. And we didn't know everything then. We didn't have the internet to look something up. Mm-hmm. It was like, what's this about? Cover looks interesting. Sounds interesting. I'm paying for it, so I'm certainly going to watch it. I'm not going to go home, put it in for 2 minutes, go, "Oh, this sucks," and take it out. I'm watching. I'm sitting there right to the end credits.
It was a commitment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there were certain guys. I worked in a video store actually for 5 years, and there were certain people that there was almost a promise that when that person's film came out, whether it's a director or an actor, there was going to be something fun or something different in it. Like, if it was a new Larry Cohen film, that was special for me. If it was a new film with, I don't know, Albert Pune was really big too, because his films were huge on video. People loved his stuff. Van Damme film. He just, or all the full moon stuff, Empire and stuff like that.
I'm a Van Damme fan. As you can see, I got Bloodsport up here. I'm a Van Damme fan. Yeah. But like, I mean, even those movies, like all those action movies, like, all those bad 80s, but they call them bad now, but those 80s action movies, just not even hard action movies, just some great ones there. I mean, it was loved it all.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge martial arts film fan. So, I mean, that was all. I loved all that stuff. If there was a new Van Damme film, if there was a new Chuck Norris film, I was watching it, man. Like, I loved that stuff. So, I mean, it's the video store age is certainly interesting. Like, it seems like it was 1,000 years ago almost now.
But it really does.
Yeah, and you're right. Like, there's so much out there streaming that it's almost overwhelming at times.
It is.
I'm still a big
not one to one. Me too. but it also makes me not want to watch nothing at all. I've had instances where I'm jumping between Netflix, Tubi, what's called, trying to find something to watch. And then after 20 minutes of trying to find something to watch, I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to go on to YouTube or something. I just completely just say fuck it because it's just too much.
Yeah, I'm gonna go throw Enter the Dragon in for the 90th time.
I'm gonna watch Bloodsport for the 1,000th time because those are things that I know, and I don't want to give new things a try because it's just so much. I don't know. It's a question mark. It's the unknown, and it's just so many fucking options. And our time is valuable now. You know, our time is very valuable now. I don't have to sit through a bad movie anymore.
Yeah. Is Van Damme your guy? You a big Van Damme fan?
Van Damme's my guy, man. Van Damme's my guy.
I met him.
Oh, I'm jealous.
And it was a really, really interesting encounter. It wasn't like at a fan expo or anything like that. I worked in a hotel in Niagara Falls. And I stopped in during the day to pick up my check. And one of the bellhops said, "You're not going to believe this. Jean-Claude Van Damme's in the house tonight." It's like, what? So I go into work. I was working nights. I was a night auditor. I go into work with a Muscle magazine that he's on the front of and my VHS copy of Hard Target.
Well,
just in case. So I'm working the desk. It's about 1 o'clock in the morning. Phone rings. "How are you, my friend?" It's Van Damme. I go, "Good. How are you?" "Good. I've got a sore stomach." I said, "Okay. Do you have anything for a sore stomach?" I said, "No." I go, "Maybe you could drink a glass of milk to try to coat your stomach or something." "Does that work?" I go, "You could try it. Bring a glass up to me, my friend." So I walk upstairs, top floor. I get in the hallway. I rap on the door, but he's got the bolt out and the door is ajar, so it's open. I knock. "Come in, my friend." I walk in, and him and his wife are lying in bed. And his wife is clearly naked, but she's got the sheet up through her legs and just covering her breasts. And I was like, I'm a young guy. I walk in and I go like this. "Oh, hey. Whoa. Hey. So there I am in his room. I give him a glass of milk, and I pull out Hard Target from behind my back. "Oh, do you mind signing this?" And he did.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm jealous of that story, man.
Yeah, it was funny. It was just one of those really funny encounters, you know. And he actually signed the Muscle magazine as well. I remember he got up and walked across the room. He was in his boxer shorts, and he was in great shape. He wasn't a big guy, but man, was he put together. But I just remember how funny it was. They kept calling me my friend, and his wife was laying there clearly naked in bed. It was just, and I'm standing there in the room like an idiot, like, "Oh, what do I do?"
I was supposed to go see him. He was at going to be a convention in Germany, and I was supposed to go see him, and then COVID fucking happened. And I'm like, "Oh, you motherfucker!" Like, you know. And I even had a custom Jean-Claude Van Damme Bloodsport Funko Pop made. It's awesome.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it is awesome.
Nice.
And I was going to get autographed by him. And then, so I guess I'm going to have to go to, because he doesn't come to the States. He doesn't come to the States that much for anything anymore.
You don't see him around much, really. Yeah. I mean,
he's in Belgium, and that's any convention in Europe. That's where I see him mostly at. So I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, you never see him at any of the like expos or cons or anything like that. Like he just, I mean, I guess he's still working. I don't know how much he's working right now, but up until a couple of years ago, he was still pretty prolific.
Direct to video, but he's still out there doing it.
And some of the stuff was okay. I mean, a lot better than Steve Seagal's latter day.
If you watch my show, you know I don't like Steven Seagal. I can talk shit about Steven Seagal for a whole hour, man.
Let's just hope you're never walking somewhere and all of a sudden he's standing behind you and trying to kick you.
I can run away from his fat ass now.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
All right, listen. Everyone, thank you for coming to the Horror Realm.
Thank you.
I'm Travis Bruce, and that's my man, Chris Dalton. We'll see you next time. Take care.